nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, thank you for this season of the year, Father. May it be on our hearts the whole time, the real meaning of this season. Father, bless this gathering. May we do your business in a manner, and the city business in a manner that brings honor and glory to you. Bless our families, please. And thank you for Jesus and what he did for us.
Amen.
Because it added these folks, and then we had a call in from Corbett to change that.
Okay, at this moment, we'll go into item number 4, citizens' comment. If somebody's got something they want to address the council with, please come up to the front, state your name and your address. Try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, the councilman, mayor. Again, I'm Annette Johnson, and I came before the council last month regarding Dr. Samuel Thomas. I had proposed a portion of Highway 27 as a dedication to Dr. Thomas, and I think we had left it that I had reached out to Senator Dugan, and as part of the proposal, I just wanted to see if there was any update on that, sir.
Tim, you want to address that?
Yeah, our city engineer talked with Georgia DOT, and they said the proper protocol for this is to go through the local delegation, which would be Senator Dugan. They did indicate, though, and realize this is at a staff level, so their decision is not final, but they did indicate that section of road is already named after Martha Berry. So if the desire is for a state highway, we need to find a section that's not already named that you feel would be appropriate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'd be glad to work with you on that.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
How you doing? My name is Nicholas Todd Duke, Mayor, City Council. I'm the owner of Jones Towing. I got a lot in Carrollton. It is less than 5 acres. The zoning law says that you're supposed to have 5 acres or more. The zoning law is supposed to state that you're supposed to have 5 acres or more to own a towing company in the city of Carrollton. I would like to see if we could go through and have something done so that I could get my business license. I've already called the fire marshal. It's been inspected by the fire marshal. Got everything set up and ready. I was just wondering what would be the next matter of getting it done and taken care of.
Oh, I honestly don't know why the ordinance says 5 acres, but it does say a 5 acre minimum. If it's a desire of the council to reduce that, I believe that section of the ordinance will have to go through the zoning board, so it'll take 2 months. But if you desire that we change that and reduce that acreage to below 5, we can do that. What is the acreage of your property?
At 2.5.
Okay. I honestly don't see a problem. Joel, do you see a problem with those yards being as small as 2? I mean, I'm not opposed to it, certainly, and if the council would like for us to do that, we can start that process. You would probably have approval by March.
By March? Okay. Would I just have to come back here? Would I have to go through the...
No, we would do that. If it's their desire to go forward with that, we would do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
I'm Marcelle Roy. I live at 255 Catherine Court, Carrollton, Georgia. And I'm here on behalf of myself and 14 other of my neighbors. Evelyn Boatwright, age 81, Cynthia Brown, Melanie Cook, age 51, Melba Daniels, age 70, Jean Davison, 81, Sarah Huff, 82, Stanley Cooper, Elizabeth Kramer, age 43 with an 11-month-old, Anne McCleary, and Amy Velasquez, 41, husband, 46, with a 5.5-year-old. Once again, I cannot get a good night's sleep from the noise coming from Southwire and the Echo Star or Magna. Most of these neighbors that I mentioned bought homes in our neighborhood to retire in peace and quiet. For 14 months now, I've been complaining about the noise, and I've been complaining to Southwire, and I went into county records and found out that actually the Carrollton Payroll Development Authority is the lessor, and Southwire is a lessee with an option to purchase until 2031. So maybe the reason I can't get anything done is that why would you fine yourselves as landlord for a company operating in violation of your own city ordinances, section 50-77 and section 50-27 that says that it should be unlawful for odors of any nature whatsoever. I've contacted the EPA because there's a constant odor that happens at least twice a week, and I've been told by an engineer that it's the odor of plastic being melted, the resin particles that they use to coat the wire being melted. It's an awful odor. It permeates my home at night. It's in the morning when I go out. It's at night sometimes when I go out to walk. I just am really frustrated that I keep being told that there's been sound studies. There's this excuse, that excuse. I was given a container of earplugs by Southwire, by Lakeisha Wilson. I've met with Ben Pascal. They fixed one of the offending machines, but the noise has continued. This is detrimental to my health and to my neighbor's health. And since you all are the landlords, acting landlords of 5152 Columbia Drive, I would think that you would try and do something more to alleviate the noise that comes at night. I noticed that there's a sign that says the use of air brakes is prohibited on Linda Lane, and I doubt you put those residents that were impacted by that noise through sound studies to determine whether or not they had legitimate reasons to be bothered by that coming down the hill. I have to listen to a sound that living 8 miles from I-20 and 57 miles from the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport sometimes sounds like I'm living on a expressway at rush hour or a runway at the airport. It's a horrible, high-pitched sound that does not cease. And I just don't understand what the holdup is in getting either these companies fined and within the bounds of the city ordinances, or I just don't understand. And I've been in contact with the man that hired an attorney that threatened to shut down the reconstruction of I-85 because of nighttime noise. And if that's my only route, I don't really want that. I would like to just have peace and quiet. I don't see why a company can't be a good neighbor and a good employer in the community, and why those two things are can't be mutually in the same interest of the company. This is not going to solve my problem or my neighbor's problem. I came here and I had asked each one of these neighbors today verbally if I could use their name and their age. They're not interested in money. They want to live in their homes peacefully at night. Our own city ordinance say that we should be fining these companies when they violate my ability to have a good night's sleep. So, and I looked in records that CBS and Sony, when they built this plant back, it became operational as far as records go 28 years ago in 1989. And Southwire is still making use of cooling towers that are falling apart. that have fans on the top, that we're at the level of the top of these units. When I've driven down there, you can't really hear it at ground level. Last night alone, I got a reading of 67.1 dBs right behind my bedroom window. And I'd like to know if any of you could sleep with that kind of constant noise. And this is not a noise that happens like a train horn or the train going by. This is not a noise that happens by a car with mufflers. This is a constant, incessant noise that does not end. And when daytime comes, the only reason you don't hear it as loud is because other noises, the ambient noise of the neighborhood and goings on, kind of make it seem less. But it's impairing my neighbor and my health, and I don't think that I should have to endure this when I've been complaining in one form or another to one person or another for over 14 months. And I don't know why you want to keep spending money conducting surveys when right after Yachio was built, that was not the source of the noise. But as soon as Southwire booted up and started running, the noise was evident. And I can go back in my notes, which I've given to Ben Pascal at Southwire and Mr. Skinner, that I've taken digital recordings that are there. The World Health Organization says I shouldn't be having to endure noise decibels over 55 is detrimental to the health of any individual. And we're nightly over 60 decibels. And
Ma'am, we hear you.
okay. Well,
Thank you very much.
very much. Thank you.
And if I may comment after you, I would like to say, too, that I've clocked thousands of hours, and I do mean thousands of hours of meeting with Southwire, meeting with city staff, and trying to resolve the issue of noise in that neighborhood. I'm exasperated and annoyed beyond belief. I've tried everything. I met with Southwire 2 weeks ago. They told me they were working on a piece that they were going to bring here as a solution to present to the city council. And I'm awaiting to hear from Southwire, and I hope they come to the next meeting. I appreciate all the goodwill that Southwire and other companies have done, and I hope they continue to do goodwill in our community to help people all around the world and certainly all around this country. But there's one name that you forgot to add to that list, and that is my name, because I also live in that neighborhood, and I'm 45 years old. So please add my name to whatever that is that you have. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name's Jeff Herron. I'm with Southwire.
Hey, Jeff. Oh,
How you doing?
You. Good to see you.
So we take seriously anytime we have a report or a input from the community about any of our factories, about anything that we might be involved in. So it is true that we've been working closely with the residents in the community for a number of months, and it is more than a year. When we first got a report that we had a sound issue or a noise issue in the neighborhood, we went in and did some studies of our own to determine exactly what it was and what it might be coming from. We found a piece of equipment that was noisier than we thought it should be. We put in a temporary system around it, and then we ultimately built a building and closed that piece of equipment and put acoustical insulation around it so that we could try and reduce the noise level. And each time we would do one of these overhauls or improvements around a piece of equipment, we would take additional numbers, and it did in fact lower the dB rating at the property line. But we continued to get feedback. We thought that was going to be the issue, and we would have it resolved. But it wasn't. So we got information in some cases from Councilman Byrd, and other cases from Ms. Roy and others. And so we continued to, each time we would get that feedback, try and correlate what was happening at the factory. And some days we would get information that the sound levels were very good, and what was happening at the factory was exactly what happened the day before and the day prior to that. In other cases, we would get information that the noise was particularly bad. So we would take that information and try and correlate it. And there would be no big change. We'd go back and look at whether or not we had additional equipment on loan? Do we have contractors in place? Were we running processes that we didn't normally run? And the short answer was we never could correlate any of the activities at the plant that related to these instances or the feedback we're getting from the community. So ultimately, we did find, and I think we were working with Councilman Byrd, we found a couple of fans on the back of the building. We went ahead and replaced those. We had some ventilation fans above the main part of the building that were running at different RPM range. So we went in and we harmonized those to get them all running the same speed. That seemed to have a positive impact. And we've done noise studies at the property line, and we're below 50 dB at the property line. So we began to believe we were not the root cause of the noise issue in the community. What convinced us we were not the root cause of the noise issue in the community is we got a correspondence that said things had been really good for 3 days, and this was in mid-October. And then on October, I think it was the 14th or the 15th, we shut the plant down for safety meetings. So while the plant was down, we got a report that the noise was unbearable. And we said, okay, we can't correlate anything, but here at a time when the noise should be as good as it's ever been, we're getting complaints. So it's starting to tell us we're not the root cause of this noise issue in the community. So then at the end of October, we were shut down to do our inventory. We do a month-end inventory. In October every year, we'd count everything. So we were down. We got a similar correspondence on that morning that it was terrible. And we said, okay, it can't be us. We're not even running today. So there is a problem. I believe when the residents tell us there's a problem, we believe it. So we're not here to question whether or not there's a problem. The issue for us is we're not the root cause of the problem. I do think that the noise ordinance that we currently have in Carrollton is very difficult for a compliance officer to go out and determine whether or not there's a violation. So Southwire would encourage the council to put together a noise ordinance that would give them something measurable so that a compliance officer could go out and actually do a field test and determine whether or not the factories or the restaurants or the concert or whatever it is in compliance so that they could do their work. We think it would be good for the community. We think it would be good for industry. So we fully support that. And anything we can do to help the council to come up with that, we'd be glad to do that. Thank you.
I would like to say I encourage you to assist the council in doing that, Jeff. And also, I'd like to ask Chuck Connolly, and I'm sorry about my voice today, but I'd like to ask Chuck Connolly, our city attorney, to inform us on where we stand on developing that ordinance. And also, who is going to combat or monitor the noises? I can't do it anymore. I can't stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning anymore meeting with y'all. We've had 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning meetings that last 3 and 4 hours, and I have to go to work the next day, and I'm a zombie. I'm to the point where I can't take it anymore. So if I have, and I'll do it, I'll do it. But those codes officers that we pay every year that I voted on the budget for, I think they should be fired if I have to continue to do it. It's because I deserve a salary. Okay, I'm serious too about that because I don't get paid to work 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day chasing sounds. So something has to be done up here, and I would like to see this on the next agenda for January. And I move right now, and I know I have to have another council member to move with me to have this put on the agenda. Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you to everybody at Southwire too, because I think it means a lot that you guys are willing to stay up with me all night to chase these sounds with walkie-talkies and compasses and going through the woods and being chased by a bear or whatever that was that we were chased by the other day. So I thank y'all for that. I thank you for being willing to work with us. And Marcel, I thank you for your hard work too, but we shouldn't have to be up all night long playing cat and mouse and chase the way we've been doing and then expect to come to work and run the city. There's absolutely no way I can do it. Again, if I have to do it, which I'm willing to do because I'm a machine, I like staying up all night, I don't mind, I'll do it. If I do it, somebody's going to get fired. I'm just saying, all right? Thank you. So, Chuck, could you address that?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. One of the things I think everybody agrees with is that our noise ordinance is outdated. It's been on the books since at least 1975, and probably predates even 1975. And the primary problem with our noise ordinance is that it does not have a quantitative noise standard. It speaks more in terms of qualitative, the noise, and I'm just summarizing, but the noise shouldn't be bad, okay? Well, that's not much of a standard for either the people that are living in the communities or frankly for industry to know what they're supposed to meet. And I will say before we take too much criticism for that, I've looked at a number of different jurisdictions comparable to ours, and a lot of them have the same noise ordinance that we have. And this will come as no surprise to you, but a lot of times what happens is model ordinances get prepared and many different cities adopt them and they stay on the books forever, and sometimes you reach a point where they no longer make sense. There are, however, some jurisdictions that have newer noise ordinances that provide for a quantitative standard, which is measured typically at the property line of the receiving property. And that is something that's being looked at, and Councilman Byrd, I anticipate that at the January meeting, a new noise ordinance will be presented to you guys for consideration. Just one point of clarification, I just want to make sure everybody understands. The Carrollton Payroll Development Authority and the City of Carrollton are not the same thing. They are two separate legal entities. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that that if the Carrollton Payroll Development Authority owns a piece of property and leases it to someone, that is not the same thing as the City of Carrollton owning a piece of property and leasing it to someone. They are separate and distinct legal entities with different boards and different legislation that creates them. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that. I don't know about the person that you mentioned. I've not heard that person's name before, but the mayor, the board is comprised, the Carrollton Payroll Development Authority board is comprised of 5 individuals, 2 of whom sit by virtue of their office, the mayor of Carrollton being one, so Mayor Hollingsworth is now on the board, and also the president of the Chamber of Commerce. And then there are 3 members that are appointed to the board. There is a person that sits on the mayor and city council who also sits on the Carrollton Payroll Development Authority board. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else?
I would like to say thank you, Chuck, and thank you to Marcel, and thank you, Jeff, and everybody else. Ashley, I see you back there, and everybody else from Southwest. So thank you.
Item number 5, minutes. Have a motion we adopt minutes from last month's meeting, November 6th.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Have a motion to adopt.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Item number 6, mayor and council announcements.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and to our citizens as well, I would like to thank everyone who's involved in the parade. I was just now in it, and that parade route is really neat, and I think it's a lot of fun, and there were lots of happy people out there. So thanks to everyone who was involved in organizing the parade, still involved in it right now, and it's happening as we speak, right behind us. And also, I would like to thank the city as well for their work on, and the council as well, and the mayor for the work over on Presbyterian Avenue. I know we have some frustrated citizens who are ready for that work to conclude, but I must say, I've experienced it myself, and things are going much smoother now, and I think it's looking pretty good. And I really like the I can never say the name of the Italian, La Trattoria. I like that area a lot, and it's looking really good, and those guys are working really hard. I would like to ask Joel Richards to stand at this time, if you don't mind, our police chief. Joel Richards worked like a Hebrew slave on Saturday to help me make sure that we had kids out at the West Carrollton Recreation Center to participate in our, I think it's the fourth annual, we used to call it Scared Straight, but now we call it Real Talk. and we had inmates come out from our prison, and I'm sure that was a huge undertaking to get them there. One of the inmates had a mom drive in from what state? Maryland? Maryland, just to see her son. They told very, very powerful stories. We had other people there who have been incarcerated before. Now they've turned their lives around, so we were able to show both ends of the spectrum. And we wound up probably having about 40 kids, so about 45 kids and their parents come out. So it was a fantastic event. We fed them, gave them drinks. Walmart gave bicycles, video games. Everybody went home with a fidget spinner, footballs, you name it. So I would like to thank Joel and his staff and the city as well for backing that project. And I hope we can do that more often. Too bad we had it the day they had that. What was the football game that was on now? I'm serious. I'm not playing, but thank you. I don't like football. So yeah, that game. Also, I would like to announce too that I'm starting a brand new program along with a couple of people in the community. It's called Fix It. And what we're going to do is we're going to work with fatherless children to teach them how to change tires, change oil, cut grass. Kent, we'll probably need your help because I don't know how to do that stuff. And mow lawns, etc. And that program starts at Legends West in the parking lot on December 15th at 5:30. And we have a lot of people behind us on that project, so we look forward to it. That's all I have. Oh, and Merry Christmas, all our citizens. I'm so sorry. And I forgot to say thank you to everyone who voted me back in office again. I look forward to working very, very hard with each and every one of you. And if you ever for 1 second feel that you're not loved, please know that I really do love you. Thank you.
My only public comment is Merry Christmas to our department heads and Happy New Year. I will not see y'all probably till January. Thank you for your hard work over this last calendar year. And thank y'all. And Merry Christmas to everybody else.
Just want to say big thanks to everybody that worked so hard on rescheduling the parade to the new date. I know that was a lot of work, and I know that you guys always do a fantastic job, so thank you to everybody that worked on that. And again, I know I've said it to a lot of people, but thank you for the votes and helping me get reelected as well, to council members up here that did give me a call of congratulations, and thank you so much for your support. That's it.
Just got a few things, kind of like Matt, I won't see a lot of y'all again until the end of the year, so happy holidays. And thanks for everybody's done. I've been getting a lot of great reports on Mike Green's department as far as the pickups and yards, and everybody's getting up leaves, and y'all doing a real good job staying on top of all that. Everybody's real pleased. I don't think I've had any complaints from anybody this month. I can't say anything good, and it's great. But happy holidays.
Let's have a couple of quick things. One, this is one of those rare years where New Year's Eve is going to fall on a Sunday, and alcohol sales are an issue. There is literally no way to change that ordinance for having alcohol sales after Sunday at midnight. We can choose not to issue citations. That's about the best we can do. If you object to that, please say so. Otherwise, I'm going to direct the police to try to keep everybody safe and not issue any citations after that point. Our ordinance is very clear that we can't sell alcohol on Christmas Day. So unless there's an objection to that, that's the way we will proceed. I'd also like to thank all the department heads and all the employees. Your level of work is just amazing. I had a judge call me a couple of weeks ago and say that they laughed that if they left a dead elephant on the street, the city would get it up. I said, yeah, and we'd find a way to make money on it. So I'm very proud of what these people do. We got the best fire department, best police department, best public works, excellent parks and rec, obviously excellent water system. And so just very proud of everybody and appreciate all the work they do, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8. Approval of agenda items for consideration.
Yes. Okay. Okay, yes, sir. I move we accept the current agenda with the addendum items as mentioned by City Manager Tim Grissom.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. Rory, certificates of recognition, 2017 CRPA 1400 volleyball champions.
All right. Big congratulations to the 14 and under girls volleyball championship team and our Parks and Recreation. Could we get a round of applause for that? I'd like to read the certificate of recognition. What I'll do is I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll call up each person. And if you can all just kind of come up at the same time, we'll pass out the recognition, the certificates after that. From the Office of Mayor, Carrollton, Georgia, dated December 4th, 2017. It is with great pleasure and tremendous pride that the Mayor and Council of the City of Carrollton express our sincere congratulations to the Carrollton Parks and Recreation 14 and under girls volleyball team for winning the Georgia Recreation and Parks Association State Championship in volleyball on November 11th, 2017. These players and coaches are to be commended for a long, successful season, and we are proud of the record you've earned with dedication, enthusiasm, and willingness to work hard, as well as the fine publicity you've brought our community. Therefore, we are pleased to publicly commend the Carrollton Parks and Recreation 14 and under girls volleyball team for these fine efforts and present this certificate of recognition to each team member as an expression of the affection and admiration from the Mayor and Council and all the citizens of the City of Carrollton, Georgia. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal to be affixed, Mayor Walt Hollingsworth, date December 4th, 2017. And first name, Katie Allred.
Peter, can you come up here and give us a hand with this, please?
Josie Godwin. And forgive me if I mispronounce anybody's name. Charlotte Milanese. Abigail Shed. Christian Dedman. Mila Land. Maggie Miles. Blakely Young. And coaches Samantha Peavy, Emily Robinson, and Monica Craig.
I would like to say that these girls went at the state tournament. They went 5-0, never losing a single set, and this was back-to-back state champion seasons for them. So I'm proud of all of them. So put your hands together one more time for these ladies. They represented the city of Carrollton very well.
Well, Peter, while you're here, we're going to do recognition of 2017 GRPA Volunteer Awards.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is one of the best years our Parks and Recreation Department has had with the Georgia Recreation and Park Association. Without dedicated staff and the Recreation Commission, the hundreds of volunteers that work for us on an annual basis, part-time employee, a city manager that supports us, and a mayor and council who understand that quality of life is an important part of community success, none of this would have been possible. So thank you to all of you guys. To put all this in perspective to everybody out here tonight, on average, we typically win 2 or 3 awards each year as we compete with other agencies all over the state. This year, we brought home 9 awards for our Carrollton community, and the first award I'll speak on tonight is one of our 4 Volunteers of the Year awards. The first one tonight will be Miss Laura Richards. And if I can have Kent Johnston go ahead and come up here too, please, I would appreciate it up front. She was recognized for her efforts for having a lasting positive feedback on parks and recreation in the state of Georgia for the Carrollton Greenbelt. The 18-mile linear park encircles the city of Carrollton, is the largest green space and greenway conservation project ever undertaken in our community. Without her leadership and vision, this project would have taken years to accomplish. Thank you, Laura, for your gift and what a wonderful legacy you've established in our town. And obviously, she couldn't be here tonight, but Ken, if you'll stand up here, please, I sure would appreciate it. Kent was also heavily involved, and I'm about to go through a few others that were heavily involved as well. The second award that our department won this year was the GRPA Outstanding Project Award, presented to Mr. Kent Johnston for his work on the Carrollton Greenbelt. This award is presented not only to Kent and his staff, but to everyone that planned, helped, and implemented our Carrollton Greenbelt. Thank you to Laura Richards, our city staff, city manager Tim Grizzard, Erica Studdard, Tommy Holland, the police and fire department, John Bass, the Path Foundation, and the Community Foundation as well, and City Attorney Chuck Connerly. Thank you all to you guys too as well. Our third award that we won this year, this gentleman won it not only on the district level, but he also won it on the state level, Mr. Gerald Bird. He won the Georgia Recreation and Park Association Volunteer of the Year for his outstanding work on Legends West Park. That started out as a dream and became a reality this past year with the completion of the park in the West Carrollton community. Hands down, it's one of the most beautiful parks in our community and one we can all be proud of in our town. Thank you for your commitment, Gerald, to the Parks and Recreation and to our community. We appreciate it. Our next Volunteer of the Year award goes to Dr. Eric Hine. This man right here wore me out for the last 5 years. He won the Georgia Recreation and Park Association Volunteer of the Year for his tireless work on the 18-hole disc golf course at Hobbs Park. His dedication to this project from start to finish is why our Carrollton community has the #1 ranked disc golf course in the state of Georgia. This was a true partnership between private citizens and public recreation to produce a fantastic amenity for people to enjoy for years to come in our Carrollton community. Thank you. Our next Volunteer of the Year award goes to Miss Tanya Pittman. If you can come up here as well, please. Tanya is one of our newest Parks and Recreation Commission members. She won the Georgia Recreation and Park Association Volunteer of the Year for her outstanding leadership with our Carrollton Flex Set Gymnastics team as a parent volunteer. The children make our Carrollton Flex Set successful, but if we did not have parents like Tanya volunteering her time 24 hours a day at those gymnastics meets, we would not be able to host these high caliber meets and have such a well-run volunteer parent organization. Thank you for your dedication to our coaches and children in the gymnastics program. Miss Stacy Kine won the Georgia Recreation and Park Association Outstanding Program Award for her gymnastics classes that have almost doubled over the last 2 years. Stacy spends numerous hours training her staff to provide a safe and quality gymnastics program. The program currently has over 200 registered gymnasts that come through East Carrollton Gymnastics Center every 6 weeks. Congratulations. Miss Dottie Morton couldn't be here tonight. She won the Georgia Recreation and Park Association Outstanding Special Event Award. She's actually at the parade for the Carrollton Fall Festival that department does in collaboration with the Main Street each year. This partnership has allowed both departments to combine resources and offer more to the citizens of Carrollton. The event is for children ages 0 to 12 and allows children a safe and fun Halloween event. Congratulations, Dottie. And the one award that I'm really most proud of this year for our department is the Agency of the Year. And if I can have any of our staff, Parks and Recreation Commissioners that are here, please come forward as well. The Carrollton Parks and Recreation Department won the coveted Agency of the Year award for the Georgia Recreation and Park Association. This award is voted on by park and recreation professionals and highlights our major accomplishments, outstanding programs offered, and the significant contributions an agency makes to its community. As our Mayor Walt Hollingsworth stated recently, our Parks and Recreation staff is second to none, and they have been successful for a long time. The quality of life they provide for our community is what most towns our size wish they had. We continue to be proud of them and all that they do for our Carrollton community. Congratulations, guys. You guys deserve it. And thank you, everyone in the community, for all your support. We could not do it without all the hundreds of volunteers that we have. And as you see, we are very, very proud of our volunteers. And I would like Tommy, you to come forward, please, if you don't mind. Joel Richards, Jimmy Bearden, come on up. Erica, oh yeah, come on, Erica. You were part of that green belt. Jim Triplett, come on up. Don't try to hide, come on. He wrote the checks. Thank you to all you guys. Boogie Johnson, you should be up here.
Just push the button. This button. Look through here. There's nothing on there. It's black. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Wait. I mean, I'm used to it like showing up right there. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, I think I did good.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Quick.
Gerald, you have recognition you want to do?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, at this time, I would like to recognize Miss Alejandra Stack. If you could please stand where you are. This is from the Office of the Mayor, Carrollton, Georgia. It's a certificate of recognition presented to Alejandra Stack, local up-and-coming journalist and reporter. It is with great pleasure and tremendous pride that the mayor and council of the city of Carrollton express our sincere congratulations to Alejandra Stack for her achievements in the journalism industry. Alejandra began her journey into journalism when she was discovered there were hardly ever reported stories on kids. Alejandra sprang into action by writing stories, networking, and highlighting kids she had met through various avenues, including those she had met while performing activism work and participating in sports. Alejandra realized that her purpose was to help other kids see that they are never too young to achieve great things. At the age of 11, Alejandra used money she had earned from a Cartoon Network acting job to start her own magazine for kids, Kids Newsmaker. Alejandra is well known on social media as Allie in Action, with numerous followers on Facebook and Twitter. Alejandra serves as not only the founder of Kids Newsmaker magazine, but as a reporter and the CEO of the magazine. Alejandra was recently recognized by the Bahamas Press Club Media Award for 2017 for her initiatives and is to be commended for her enthusiasm and willingness to work hard on researching, documenting, writing, and presenting the news in an honest, ethical, and unbiased way. We encourage her to keep these valuable characteristics as she pursues her career in journalism. Therefore, we are pleased to publicly commend Alejandra Stack for the fine publicity she has brought to the city of Carrollton and present to Alejandra this certificate of recognition as an expression of the affection and admiration from the mayor and council and all the citizens of the city of Carrollton, Georgia. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal to be affixed this 4th day of December 2017. Gerald Byrd, Mayor Pro Tem, and Walt Hollingsworth, Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Miss Alejandra Stack. Could you come up? Copies of Alejandra's magazine, which I sell in my store, by the way, don't I, Alejandra? Well, we'll hold those. We can sit these somewhere. Magazine. Beautiful work. So proud of it. How old are you now? Yeah, let's do that. We're gonna stay down here for the next one. All right. Now we're going to Hollywood, all right? We have a celebrity in the room. His name is Mr. Caleb Thomas. Caleb, could you please stand at this time? This is from the office of the mayor as well, Carrollton, Georgia, certificate of recognition presented to Caleb Thomas, local rising star. It is with great pleasure and tremendous pride that the mayor and council of the city of Carrollton express our sincere congratulations to Caleb Thomas for his achievements in television and the motion picture industry. Caleb has aspired to become an actor since the age of 4 and began attending acting classes at the age of 7. Caleb was successful in obtaining roles in movies, including The Internship, the movie Selma, which I think Oprah Winfrey was there with you, and A Question of Faith, which was just now in our movie theater, and I went to see it twice at the Carrollton Stadium Cinemas. Great movie. I cried both times. Caleb also starred in a Toys R Us commercial and has recently booked the action hero television series Black Lightning to be aired on Channel 69. Caleb is to be commended for his initiative, enthusiasm, and willingness to work hard on video productions as he continues to pursue his acting career. Therefore, we are pleased to publicly commend Caleb Thomas for the fine publicity he has brought to the city of Carrollton and present to Caleb this certificate of recognition as an expression of the affection and admiration from the mayor and council and all the citizens of this great city. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my seal and cause this seal to be affixed this 4th day of December, 2017. Gerald Berry, Mayor Pro Tem. Walt Hollingsworth, Mayor. Caleb, come on up. So good to see you, Caleb, in person. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm gonna put the microphone back. He's going to be the Grand Marshal of the NAACP Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade as well.
Anybody wants to slide out the door, and then we get into the meat and potatoes of the meeting if y'all want to just hang around, or if you're welcome to leave. Somebody might have homework they need to get done tonight. Item number 4, rezoning request, rezone 9.93 acres from C2 general commercial to C3 neighborhood commercial with the senior housing floating zone, location 170 Highway 113, applicant CRN Development LLC on behalf of property owner Carrollton Development LLC. Ms. Studdard.
Thank you. The 4th item on your agenda was reviewed by the Planning Commission in November, and they recommended approval of the rezoning request by CRN Development with the following conditions, and there's several of these, but I'm going to go through these line item by line item. Number 1, sidewalks may be constructed as shown on the binding site plan. You should have received that in your packet. The site plan and architectural elevations are binding to the approval of the zoning. Number 3, an increase in the allowable density from 10 units per acre to 10.3 units per acre. The senior housing floating zone currently allows 10 units per acre. I think when they got their most current survey back, it was a little less acreage than what they had originally intended, so they just asked for that extra density bump of 0.3 units per acre. The cemetery located at the southwestern boundary is to be preserved and protected. Flexibility is given to the number of parking spots needed with the results of a parking assessment. After the Planning Commission meeting, they did have a parking assessment completed that showed that they would be able to reduce the number of parking. This particular type of use, senior housing, has an industry standard that is put out by the Urban Land Institute, and they asked basically for permission to reduce the required number from a traditional multifamily. The trees that are along the south property line adjacent to 160 Highway 113 are to remain, and I'm going to actually point at that. That's along the Albright tract. There's a stand of hardwoods that are kind of right along that property line, and the Planning Commission asked that none of those be cut down. The facade of the back of the building facing Highway 113 shall contain features to appear as a building front. The building is situated, there's 2 buildings. One of the buildings situated along Highway 113 will be basically, the building will be oriented towards the parking lot that's behind the building, which we like, but we also want the building frontage along 113 to look as though it's a front, so we're not looking at the back of the structure. A buffer consisting of 8 to 10 foot evergreens, non-Leland cypress evergreens, will be planted along the property line separating the commercial from the residential on the southern portion of the property. This is basically the same property line that we're talking about. The Planning Commission also recommended, in addition to the stand of trees that are there, that they plant additional evergreen trees on that same tract. The Planning Commission reviewed this request and they voted unanimously 9-0 to approve it. If you have any questions, I'm available. You should have received the parking study and I think a market study in your packets. Both of those came out after the Planning Commission meeting.
Erica, somewhat related, unrelated, is the neighborhood next to it. I know they were having a lot of issues. Tim, you might remember when they used to come to us a lot.
So, do you mean to answer?
Trash and all the.
I'll tell you that the neighborhood's been cleaned up quite a bit. I don't know if it's
Okay.
under new property management. This is a duplex neighborhood here known as Wisteria.
Yeah.
There are a lot of issues with this. This particular neighborhood was developed partially, and I think it was probably a victim of the economy bust, the bubble bust. And when things went into foreclosure, basically the outcome is the streets are privately owned. They're inadequate. They're substandard. They're too narrow. But they're also privately owned by an entity that doesn't own any of the units. So it's a very complicated mess, and we currently haven't been presented with a solution by any either property owners or developers on that. So that's just kind of sitting, but it is occupied, and I think they're doing a little better job keeping it. At least when I went in over the last month or so reviewing this request, it looked nicer and cleaner.
That is a very strong group of owners out there. I don't know that they have a formal POA, but there's a group of ladies that police that place very strongly. So the ownership structure is the same as Bristol Lakes, but we don't have the problems there that we have at Bristol Lakes, just because there are a number of residents that police the neighborhood very strictly.
And I wanted to ask Rory, I used to always receive complaints about the neighborhood and the happenings. Have you received any about trash or whatever?
Yeah, largely the complaints I've received have been about the overgrowing stuff just on this property that they're looking to develop. I have a question about the streets that
Yes, sir.
are within this. Are those city-owned streets, the North Winds Connector, Wisteria Lane?
So yes, if you look at the location map, both of those streets are city-owned, and those are not substandard. Those actually meet our requirements right now. It's just the streets within that neighborhood that are substandard.
Okay. I got a few more questions. What other? I know the senior housing. There's a huge demand for that in our community. What other senior housing communities exist? I know Park Place. What other ones are there?
There's Carrollton Club on Cedar Street and Park Place are both similar to this. They are affordable housing products.
Okay.
Chick is out of town. Charles Griffin with the Housing Authority, he probably could answer. I know those two are restricted, age restricted and income restricted.
And do you know what sort of outdoor amenities exist at those locations?
I can tell you every time I see Sandra, she wants us to work on some sidewalks along that area so her residents can walk. She's not here that I know of, so I don't know. I know at Park Place, just from personal anecdotal experience, because we looked at that for one of my relatives. They have an indoor kind of club room. They have a computer room. They have an area where you can have kind of birthday parties where it's not inside the apartments. It really is primarily indoor. I'm not real sure how much the residents get out, and some of them drive. Not all of them do. They did a study to kind of show what percentage typically with a development like this do have cars and do drive. But that's what I'm aware of just from visiting Park Place.
Do you know what that percentage of drivers versus non-drivers or?
Was it 80%? 80%.
80% drivers? Is that correct? Okay. So
Yes.
20% would need pedestrian access to that space.
They would be pedestrians, or they would have someone drive them. Correct.
Transportation.
They're no longer driving.
Okay, I got a few more. I'm sorry. What outdoor amenities? Because I saw in some of the pictures there were some rocking chairs next to air conditioning units. But outside of that, I think that was in the Rome photo, or in the photo of the example that was provided that was in Rome. There was the outdoor amenities on there looked like there was rocking chairs next to. So what is planned for this?
currently, as shown, they're doing indoor amenities. They're doing kind of a club room. I think the applicant can answer those questions. Same thing. I think it'll have a computer room, similar to what you see at Park Place, where they've got kind of a gathering room, cards. I'm not sure what kind of planned activities that they do around that space. In other words, I don't know if they have card night or game night or anything like that. The applicant can answer those questions.
They do it
In more
at
detail.
Park Place. They do have special activities because I'm one of them. I teach
Okay.
art there, so
Okay.
I go over there and teach art for free. So they do have those amenities. And Rory, what I did with Park Place was I worked with them on the amenities that they have over there because I wanted garden boxes in around some of the apartments, so those seniors who are accustomed to having a little garden can have a little space to work in. So they built some brick container gardens all around the place and gazebos as well. So
Yeah, I'm just seeing a lack of functional exterior sort of spaces on this plan, but that sounds like an awesome way to provide something like that. And then the average income, it is affordable rate, right?
It is.
So do we know what the average income level is of? Up to, you said? Okay. 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 And has there been an impact study for traffic onto 27 from that area?
There has not.
When was the last time? Because I know that's already a kind of a bad street where Subway is to getting onto 27. I was just wondering if, Tommy, do you know what when was the last time it was looked at, and when does it plan on? Is there any plans?
Right here.
Rory, our wards butt one another in that spot, and I wondered if there's ever a chance of there being a light put right there. You know, because it is getting. I mean, it's only going to make it worse. And that Subway and all that, it's impossible to get to.
Yeah, if we're looking at 80% more, that's looking at 80 more cars
Yeah,
living right there.
times two in some cases, or three.
Come on, if you can help answer this, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Can you come to the mic, Tony, please?
Yeah, I'm Tony Dermott. I represent the owner of this property. We had looked at trying to get a better intersection there, not a right in, right out. Did have a discussion with the DOT, and they said due to Old Bremen Road, the way this comes in, that they were not going to allow a light or a regular intersection other than a right in, right out. That's as far as I got with them, so there may be.
So what we're gonna get stuck with is just an overload on 113. And it's already pretty overloaded now.
I mean, what's an overload, though?
I mean, traffic's backed up to the EMC in the mornings, trying to get onto 27. In the afternoon, it's backed up to Brandy Chase, trying to get to the bypass. So the DOT told you no changes there.
Now that was a year or so back.
Changes being traffic lights. Or
Yeah, adding a light. They said the way that Old Bremen Road comes in was their biggest concern. The way Old Bremen Road, if you look on this right,
it's
it
misaligned.
comes in at
It's
an
just
angle,
edge.
and I mean there may be a way to rework that intersection. I don't know that.
Reminds me of Presbyterian Avenue a little bit, doesn't it? It's just it's a mess.
And I'm assuming then, Tommy, there probably wouldn't be a light on 113 at the other side either. It's too close to 27 light. Yeah.
Any more questions, guys?
I just want to make the point, if there's a desire for a light, we need to make sure the developer pays for that. That signal will be close to $200,000, and then that won't include any road work that may be needed to support it. On either end, whether 113 or 27, it'll be close to 200,000, I would think, wouldn't you, Tommy? And again, that wouldn't do the road work associated with it.
Yeah, I just want to say, just to clarify, I'm all for senior living, all for affordable rate housing to make sure that people can have a place to live, but I want to make sure it is in the best place for them to have connections into town, and I don't want the city then to have to eat those sorts of costs later, to be able to install, to make sure that it is an actual safe sort of space. But I think not to speak out of turn, are there a few people here for and against?
Yeah, we'll get to them in a minute.
Okay. Cool. Sorry, yeah, I'm speaking out of turn.
Anybody want to speak for or against this motion? Yes, ma'am. Please come to. You want to come? You're the developer. Come on up first. You may answer some questions. I'm sorry.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Thomas Ward, and I'm with CRN Development. And this proposed project is 102 units. It is affordable housing. It's just like Park. And so it's designed with security for the senior citizen as well as activities indoors. There is an outdoor picnic area. If you look at the site plan, there is an outdoor picnic area that we have outside. And we have done the gardens outside as well. At many of them, one of the issues that you have there, they have to be handicap accessible. That's a very difficult thing to build, is a garden that's totally handicap accessible. But it can be done, but they're fairly expensive. But we could do that.
Raised, yeah.
Yeah, they have to be raised up so they can reach. The issue with traffic is most elderly, and I will be happy to do a traffic study. I mean, that's not a problem. That wasn't asked of me, but I can do one. The one thing about a traffic study is that most elderly complexes have less number of trips than even a single-family house. So they go different times. They don't go at 8 o'clock in the morning. They don't go at 5 o'clock or come home at 5. Majority of them, probably maybe 40% of them work. The rest of them are disabled or whatever. So they're going to the doctor's office or they're going somewhere at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. But they're not out there in the traffic. But again, I will be happy to do a traffic study to show what this would do for you. Mm-hmm. What we tried to do, if you could go to back to that other slide that shows the site plan, right there in that area, somewhere, there it is. Single family house. Single family house is right here. Well, that's where the planning is there. Then we would not build or do anything on this lot at all or this lot behind it. So that's all going to be green space. So our building is approximately 300 feet from the property line. So that has a very large buffer from the single family area.
Do people stay? Is that red brick house?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying, with the help of the city planning, they allowed it. We had to have a parking area right there, which we were able to eliminate because the parking in the code is 2 units per acre, and seniors, that's just way above what's required. And I furnished y'all information about that. Mm-hmm. So we were able to move all of that, and we've always been able to get in those 2 pieces right there. The rest of that property will be totally green and kept that way. And if I can answer any of your questions, I'll try to.
I just have a few.
Yes, sir.
Two. Are other individuals who are not seniors permitted to reside on the property?
No, sir.
Okay. Who polices it to make sure that they're non-seniors? Not poor question. Who polices that?
Okay. There's 3 different groups.
Okay.
One is our management company does one. Okay, that's the first line. The state is the second line, and the investor, which would be someone like a Raymond James or someone like that, that's the third line. Every person that is in those units we have to have an application, and it is verified and re-verified, and it goes through all those people.
So this is like a hotel style development where you walk down a hallway to get to, or are they outside?
Yes, sir. It's more of a cross between a assisted living, almost, where a lot more security inside, with elevator.
Like Brookdale.
Yeah, kind of like Brookdale. Yes, sir. It has a lot like that.
Yes, sir.
The rooms are cut much larger.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's over $10 million construction. It's the fees to the city is $700,000, something like that for the building fee.
You did say elevator, because that was my concern.
Elevator.
Park Place,
Yes,
where they
it will.
have it so you can walk in one section and not have to use the stairs. If
Yes,
you go to the backside.
it'll be elevated.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're going to say the property to the south is not going to be developed?
Yes. No, there will be no development on those sites.
It's just going to stay green space?
It's going to be green space. Yes.
There's
Sir.
no
No
hidden
nothing.
No hidden agenda?
No, sir.
Are you going to plant trees there like Leland cypress, or will you just leave it now? Right now it's just grass, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like wheat, straw, whatever.
I mean, we can plant some type of trees that would mature over time would be better, like a hickory or an oak or something like that. We can get out of the landscape ordinance.
It's very unsightly right now.
Well, there's an issue there. There's a large pile of dirt that we don't own. The owner of that property owns, and he is supposed to be moving it if we get funded.
It's been there for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
That big pile there.
I mean, if we buy it, it's got to be gone. And so that big, large mound has to be gone. It's
There's
not
some broken machinery out there, and
Yes, sir.
tires, and
It's got to be all cleaned up.
man, he's responsible for taking all that.
That
away?
dirt, he is.
Not
The rest
the
of
tires and the broken
that-
tractors.
No, we'll take all that away. In the house, we're tearing the house down, of course.
The White House.
Yes, sir. Any other questions I can have for you?
Oh, anybody got any questions? I mean, anybody got any questions for the? Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Ms. Albright.
I'm Diane Albright, and my husband and I, Dennis, own the house at 160 North Highway 113. It was my husband's parents' house, and that house has been there since 1952 or 3. We purchased it after they passed away, and we've renovated it, and our son Stephen and his wife and family live in the house. Our concern is that most of the developments that he's done, we went online. He has Eagles Landing in Madison, Alabama, Skyline Trace in Monroe, Georgia, and Mallard Lake in LaGrange. They're all 2-story. This one is 3-story, which is not in, it doesn't go with the landscape of what is there. It's definitely not like Carrollton Club or Park Place. Carrollton Club is single story. Park Place has balconies and patios and porches. It's pretty. These things here are ugly. And he talks about elderly, 55 and older. Well, I'm 61, and I work, and I'm hoping that these people that are making $12,000 and $15,000 a year living there, that they've got some kind of job, because I can't believe that they're going to pay $600 and $700 a month in rent. That's half what they're making, what they bring home. What are they going to live on? So I think that, you know, that just seems a little high or a little, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. And then he says the green space. The Planning Commission, when they made all the rules or the whatever it's called, they said 10 units per acre. Well, they've given them a concession to 10.3. Well, who's to say in 5 years when they decide that they want to build something on that green space that the Planning Commission doesn't give another concession? So I'm just, I'm worried about that. Even though the green space is around our house, it might not be in a few years. It could be that, that somebody else makes another concession. So I don't feel like that we're guaranteed that it's not going to impact us in one way or another down the road. We are not against having a residential, something residential there. We just don't like the 3 stories. We just don't like the way that it looks. I mean, if you had some townhouses or some other things in there that would go along with the single-family housing that is all up and down 113, then I think that we would be a little more comfortable with that. And then again, the traffic, because you're going to come right out at our house. You coming to the right. I mean, it comes right past the house. They had talked about, an acceleration lane. Well, if they do that, they're going to take half our front yard. So, it will impact us, whether they have that thing on those 2 pieces or not. I mean, it will impact us in one way or another. So that's our point.
Thank you, Ms. Albright. Well, if they want to do something with the green space, they'll have to come back in front of us. So.
Well, no, but the thing is, I mean, who's to say in 5 years or 6 years, you all might not be here and, be somebody else. And I just,
I understand.
I'm not guaranteed that. That's what.
Gerald will be here.
Well, I mean, I hope you're here, but
We might
you know what I mean.
Who is that?
But but you understand my
Yes,
point,
ma'am.
is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
I'm not guaranteed that it's never going to be developed. So.
Anybody else? No, James.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. I'm going to reiterate basically what I said to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm not opposed of a project of this type as far as a senior housing product. I feel more based on the presentation of what I've seen and what I've read. I went on their website. It's more of an assisted living facility versus a senior housing. I have parents who would gladly downsize into a senior housing complex, but when I think of senior housing, it's those that are just wanting to get into a smaller home, more affordable, and allow them to enjoy the outdoors, indoors, and/or vacationing. I understand the low income piece behind it, and I have had conversations with locals in the community that are heavily involved in low income housing for senior citizens. One of the concerns they stressed to me was, where are these people coming from? We do need them in Carrollton, but we can't restrict our applicants. We may see people from Douglasville, Heard County, Haralson County. This will not just be Carroll County or Carrollton residents applying to live in this product. So think about that impact as well. But with the 102 units, the way it's designed, 72% of those are 2-bedroom. So 176 potential residents in this property. Thinking again for senior housing, why so many 2-bedroom? There again, I think the facility, the product, it's a viable deal, but I don't think we need that density. That's basically my presentation. But I just ask that you also be mindful of it and of the green space. I mean, to Rory's comment, seniors still want to do things outside. I understand the safety and security, but if you don't have something outside, we all love the recreation departments and whatnot, but with transportation where this facility's at, they're not going to have many options unless the city or somebody's going to provide public transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else got any questions? Any more discussion?
Hello, my name is Stephen Albright. I live at 160 North Highway 113. I just kind of want to reiterate on some of that stuff that, like my mother said, this land has been in my family's, with my family for 50, 60, 70 years now. My grandparents built that house. I grew up in that house. I spent a lot of time playing in that front yard. And I've got 2 children now. I've got a 10-month-old that's going to live there for a long time. I've got a 7-year-old. And, they enjoy running around playing in the driveway and in the front yard. And with this housing development, the impact on the traffic coming up and down 113, as you stated earlier, it's already heavy. especially with the right in, right out on 27. That only leaves 113 for them to come in and out of if they've got to go back towards Carrollton. People come flying up and down 113 all day. I mean, I almost get hit almost every day making a left into my house. People come around me in the turn lanes. Who's not to say that, you know, somebody's not going to be paying attention and come barreling through my front yard when my kid's playing in the front yard, especially with, you know, if it is the older population, turning out in front of somebody. I mean, I work in fire. I'm a paramedic and a firefighter. I understand that some of the older populations can't see as well. They can't drive as well. It's just the facts. You know, 16 to 18-year-olds can't drive well. The older population can't drive well. Also, I do agree that Carrollton does need a place for a older population to live. But it, like my mother said, it needs to be what's with the area. There's nothing in the area that's 3 stories. The Royal Inn or whatever it's called right up on 27, it's not even 3 stories. It's 2 stories. And, you know, I mean, and that's a little Roach Motel. It's not, you're going to drive down 27 and down 113 and you're going to see all these single-story houses, and then there's just going to be this big 3-story apartment complex sitting right there in the middle of everything with all these little 1-story houses around it. It's just not going to look like the area that it's placed in. The ones on Park Street, they're only 2 stories. They got balconies. I mean, they're beautiful, beautiful places. This place looks just like an apartment complex in Atlanta. It's just a wall with a bunch of windows. I mean, that's not very appealing to look at. If I had something to look at that every day, like Park Place, I wouldn't mind it. And in the mornings, going back to the traffic, trying to get out, if my wife doesn't leave the house 7:10, 7:15, she might as well put the car in park, sitting in the driveway, 10 minutes to get out. Cars come in both directions. You mean you're going to add that much more traffic to our neighborhood trying to come in and out? I mean, like you said, 55 and older. I know plenty of people that are in their 60s, 70s that are still working. I mean, my mom's 61, she still works every day. My dad's 61, he still works every day. I work with guys at the fire department that meet this 55 and up, and they're still working every day. So, I mean,
make your point.
Nobody. What?
Make your point. You're kind of running short on time.
Yeah. So that's just pretty much all I have to say. So.
Thank you, sir.
If I may, I would like to say I live with a lot of senior citizens, and if I had to pick the type of neighbor I could, it would be senior citizens. I'd rather live next door to senior citizens than a bunch of college students or folks making a whole lot of noise. So. But I think during the zoning commission, he did say something about kids could move in with their parents. Couldn't? Oh, could. I mean, people that age shouldn't have kids young enough to be out riding big wheels anyway. You know what
I just
mean?
want to clarify that in the zoning meeting, they can't have someone come visit them, but they can't live there, no.
Yeah. Spend the night. The grandkids can spend
Right.
the night.
And that occurs at Park Place as well.
Yeah. And there's no playground at Park Place for little kids to go play on or anything like that. So.
Eric, isn't that limited to 3 days in a row? Isn't there some sort of specific restriction like that?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's in the ordinance.
5 days, okay.
More than, well, they can stay more, okay, persons under the age of 18 shall not be permitted to be permanent residents of senior housing communities. For the purposes of this section, a permanent resident shall mean any person who resides within the dwelling for more than 3 consecutive weeks or has listed the residence as a dwelling for any purpose whatsoever, including but not limited to enrollment in public or private schools. So that's basically a house guest, but it's not a resident. So I'm not sure if their restrictions are more restrictive than that or not, but that's what our ordinance says.
Three more questions from the council.
Can I Can I add one more comment? It does state in the zoning that after 25 years, this floating zoning can disappear. The property's not bound by that zoning? I may have read that, I may have misread that, but I just wanted to clarify that. Just want to make sure that that's what it stays for its infancy.
Covenants expire, zoning does not.
It's okay. Can you repeat your name again? I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
Hearing no more questions, I assume y'all are ready to vote.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Table this agenda item, the rezoning request, in hopes that we can get a traffic study in relation to how we're going to address the light on 27 or lack thereof through GDOT, and also a landscaping plan that will address the green space that is right next to it. And I believe there's a way to look at restricting that green space to have anything built on it. Is it called a covenant? Is that correct?
Well, the proposal is the site plan is binding, so it would be a condition of zoning. It would be even better for that regard than a restrictive covenant,
Okay.
because they would have to come in and essentially seek a rezoning in order to change that and use it for something else.
Okay. So
They're
just-
also at their density limit, so y'all would have to increase their allowable density if they were to do that.
Yeah. So in terms of the landscape plan and design and traffic study, I'd like to make a motion to table until we receive that. A traffic study to see if a traffic light would be granted by GDOT, working with our city engineer, and then a plan to address that moving forward.
Second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of Mr. Wozik's motion, please raise your hand. It's like the motion's tabled. All right. Ms. Studdard, number 5, special use permit request, modular structure for religious use on .92 acres, 426 Burson Avenue. It's Mr. Askew here tonight.
I don't see him. That's what I was just looking.
I haven't seen him yet either. That's why I was asking.
The Planning Commission reviewed this request at their November meeting, and this specific request is for a modular building at a religious structure. Modular buildings are not currently permitted by right in this zoning district, and the special use would be to allow for the placement of that modular structure for the religious activity that's already occurring on the site. The Planning Commission voted to approve this request with 2 conditions. Some of these conditions are a matter of just review for the applicant, just so that they are very clear. The first one, the modular structure must be built to current building codes and inspected by a registered professional engineer in the factory where it was built. The applicant must provide a certification from the manufacturer stamped by a professional engineer licensed in the state of Georgia. That's actually just a reiteration of our existing UDO, so I don't want to, it's probably going to upset Chuck that we put it back in as a condition, but we did want to basically make it clear to the applicant. The second one is that that the stormwater management review will be conducted at the time of permit issuance to ensure that the modular structure does not contribute to runoff that collects in a ditch that straddles the northern property line. They voted unanimously to approve this 9-0.
Does anyone have any questions for Erica?
I'd like to speak just to a couple of items. This is the same gentleman that asked, I don't remember when, over a year ago, that we changed our ordinance to accommodate this. Okay, it's been a while.
2 years he's been after me.
Oh, it's been a while, but nevertheless, the modular unit that he's got his eye on will not comply. So, just so you know, I know someone's given him a double wide or triple wide trailer, whatever it is, but it will not, I'm sorry? The health department, it will not comply with the building code.
So we're voting on, what are the stipulations on the codes?
Basically, you're voting to give him a special use that complies with the ordinance that was passed whenever that was several years ago. You're not voting on a specific structure, even though there are photographs of that structure. There's just virtually no way he can comply with the requirements on that structure, because if I understand it right, it says a PE had to inspect it in the factory. And obviously, we have no idea where the factory is that this thing was built in.
So the only thing we're saying is we're voting on the fact that he can bring something in if it meets code?
That is correct.
I think there's a neighbor here who wants to speak. Well, I know there's a neighbor here who wants to speak.
Thank you, because if I get behind this, you'll never see me. My only concern on it was the water that comes down off the hill. Many times the city has had to come out because the overflow, and the ditch is so narrow and the overflow is so great that it comes up onto my property, and it has now washed a lot of that ditch away. My concern is, even if he gets another building, what will be done to keep my property from being washed away once he put that trailer down on that where he wants it, which is right next to the ditch that touches my property.
The famous ditch.
The famous
Y'all know the ditch she's talking about? There was a picture that went viral of a city employee buried in mud up to his chest.
Up to his chest.
We pulled it up here. Libby, you remember that last year or year before last?
I tried looking for it on my camera, but couldn't find it then.
Mike, you know what I'm talking about, Mike, don't you? Who was that in
Yeah.
there? Who was buried all the way up to his neck, and I went out there and took a picture, and it went viral. Who was that? What year was that? 14, 15, 16?
They were back, though, last year. They were back again last year.
Maybe we need to look at doing something with that ditch too. 'Cause I thought y'all were all here.
We can look at it, but it's one of those existing roads. It's extremely crooked. Property lines are right on the edge of the road. So we'll look and see what we can do. But I think it's probably the ongoing maintenance he's performing is going to be the best we can do. But we'll look again and see.
Because it's the runoff water from the church that's like flooding her property. Sort of you know which property I'm talking about? The other one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the zoning, I guess it was a zoning meeting last month, they were saying that all of the water wasn't coming from the church, coming from the street behind. Regardless of where it's coming from, it's still coming down that hill, and it hits there. And my fence has almost fell into the ditch due to so much washing away of it.
I got a question for Erica or Tim. In terms of, they're looking to do this to try to bring in, I guess their congregation has grown. Is that correct?
Yes. They need it for additional religious use.
Is there
space,
additional
office space, basically associated with the religious use that's occurring?
Is there enough room for all the people to attend to park, or are they
The
walking?
parking is currently basically right here, and I don't know that it's sanctuary space. I think it's like Sunday school space and that sort of thing, and I think that the parking is determined for a religious use by the actual sanctuary space. I'd have to go back and check, but so I think they would still meet that. Whatever's existing would be adequate.
Okay. They got tons of room there. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
A very small congregation.
Okay. Thank you.
So what exactly are we trying to do tonight? I know we don't have the actual trailer.
And I thought this trailer that we're looking at, is this the trailer that came from the county that they used at the health department or something like
That's
that?
correct. And again, what you would be approving tonight is the special use to install a trailer there, but it's going to be a trailer that meets building code.
But not that particular trailer that he thought.
That one will not
there,
meet it.
can't put there.
He's got to have the appropriate paperwork.
That thing is huge.
So we're just doing a resolution to adopt this modular structure,
It's just a special use permit.
just a special use.
And are there other churches, Matt, I think you may have mentioned one, there are other churches in the area that use modular structures or trailers, like West, what is it called, West Point or something? North Point.
With one.
Which is closed now. They had a school in the back of it, right?
North Point actually did that before the UDO revisions that disallowed modular units. Then we made the change a couple of years ago for this case to reallow modular units given a special use permit.
Anybody got any more questions?
And this is only for this particular property, not all churches. We're not saying all churches can go get a trailer and put on their property.
Correct. It's basically site specific. So if another church wanted to do it, they would have to come in and get their own special use permit.
And Ms. Yvonne, you're saying you don't want the trailer on the property.
Not if I incur any more water damage.
Right.
Yes, because as he can tell you and you've seen, there's so much coming down now that it affects my property. Now, he took out a lot of trees already, and once he took those trees out, I got even more water coming down the hill. He took out about 6 trees, and he left, I think, one standing right there where he wants to put the trailer. Now, if he comes in, take that tree out, and then, I guess, grade the land so that the trailer can be placed there, what water damage am I looking at now?
That's what I was about to ask. I wonder if he's going to do any grading in order to level. Can he grade to put a trailer in a spot in the city limit?
All of that would be done through plans review. And so, I mean, this particular basically request is to allow for him to move forward in that process. So through that permit review, they're gonna have to look at stormwater. They're gonna have to look at a grading plan. We'll look at if the tree qualifies as a specimen tree, then they would have to replace it with, two trees of the same species at a certain of a certain size. So there's a lot that needs to go into the review of this. This is really just for them to be able to move forward through that permit process.
Would they require a retention pond?
That's going to be Tommy's call.
Would it be, I guess, more feasible for us to continue to maintain the property and going out, getting neck up in mud, or maybe we should do something about? I mean, whose expense would it be? His or?
Well, again, if he develops this property, and I realize this is going to be a huge expense to him, and I don't know that the gentleman understands that, but he's going to have to do a stormwater plan. He's going to have an engineer design that. He's probably going to need a detention pond. He's going to have a grading contractor build that. They can't go out and build it with their friends who own a tractor. It's going to have to be done in the correct way. So there'll be thousands and thousands of dollars of site work just to place a modular unit there. And I'm not sure the gentleman understands that, but he would be held to that. All you would be doing tonight, and realize staff doesn't care whether you approve it or not. We don't have a position one way or the other. But if you choose to approve it, you're just allowing it basically from a zoning standpoint that it could be, but that's only the start of the process. He's then got to have it designed. He's got to hire the right qualified contractor, and he's got to put in the right stormwater detention measures, the right kind of gravel and paving and that sort of thing, like any other developer would do.
Chuck, I think I already know the answer to this question, but a special use permit is site specific. It's not ownership specific, right? So once we approve this, theoretically, he could sell it to another individual who could come in if that subsequent owner could afford all this,
That's right.
Thank
He
you.
would take advantage of this. He or she could take advantage of the
Thank you for finishing my question.
Ms. Yvonne, what do you want to see us do?
I want you all to help me protect my own property. I've been there for 34 years, and my mom and I lived there for 34 years until her passing. I want my property to be protected regardless of who coming in. If somebody coming in who can afford to do it, whoever comes in and do it, I just don't want them to just do something and I catch a bill because I can't afford to fix it myself.
Any more questions? Anybody want to make a motion of any shape, form, or fashion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I move right now that we approve the item number 4, the special use permit request for a modular structure for religious use on .92 acres from the applicant, Pastor Askew, at 426 Burson Avenue, under the conditions that he hire an engineer to complete the stormwater management systems as recommended by the city of Carrollton and our engineers.
And the other stipulations go along with it?
I'm sorry?
And the other stipulations about the building?
And the other stipulations aforementioned, Chuck, that's one of your words, right? About the building.
I think it's encompassed in what the planning commission recommended, so I think
That's
both of
all
those
encompassing.
things. So I think the motion could be simply to adopt or accept the planning commission's recommendation.
I move we also, in addition to what I just said, adopt the planning commission's accommodations and recommendations as mentioned by our city attorney. Was that good?
We have a motion. Got a second? I have a second, Mr. Waters. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. None opposed.
I just want the minutes to reflect that it's not the recommendations by the city attorney, it's the recommendations by the
P&Z.
P&Z,
Planning
yeah.
commission.
Thank you. I know you, I'm not trying to correct you.
That's
but
okay.
I just want the
I said
minutes.
that, but
I just
yeah,
want
you got that, Libby, then. Okay, good.
Item number 6, public hearing is
because we've had problems where we've read the minutes and they don't seem to be consistent with what's actually adopted. That's the purpose of it.
all right. Public hearing and consideration of resolution 13-217, occupational tax ordinance, proposed amendment. Mr. Chuck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City staff has spent a fair amount of time, Marty and Erica, looking at our occupational taxes, and they discovered that, you probably already know this, but the way our occupational tax ordinance works is that businesses are grouped together by type, and then the amount of tax that they pay, or at least the tax rate that they pay, is by business type in those groups. And what they discovered is that in certain groups, there are businesses that are paying a disproportionate amount of occupational tax compared to other businesses in the same type. And so they started looking at the issue, and they discovered that our occupational tax ordinance was adopted back in 1994 in September. About 3 months later, there was an amendment to cap the annual increase in occupational tax that was tied to the accumulated increase of the Consumer Price Index benchmark in 1978. The problem is that for some reason when, and that's what was approved by the Mayor and Council in 94, what actually got codified into our code by Muni Code reads different than that. And the cap that's in the codification of the ordinance speaks in terms of annual increase capped by the annual increase in the CPI for that year. So we've got a problem, in what was adopted 23 years ago by the Mayor and Council is not necessarily what's reflected in our code. The other thing is the way the current cap is written, it results in the problem that they discovered in going through this process is that you've got similar businesses that should be paying the same tax rate or at least the similar tax amount. And in certain cases, there's a vast discrepancy in the amount of tax that they're paying. So, long story short, the staff has recommended that we simply eliminate the cap so that all businesses within a similar category are paying the same tax rate moving forward. And it accomplishes two things. One, it cleans up what should be reflected in our ordinance. And two, does away with that disparity in terms of the amount of taxes that in certain cases similar businesses are taking. So what is reflected in Resolution 13-2017 is simply to eliminate the cap that exists in the ordinance.
Any discussion or questions, rather? Chuck, I got one. Is this, I want to say some folks were grandfathered in over the years, or is that?
We have used the term grandfathering, but it's not really a grandfather. It's really a cap. Grandfathering suggests that there is a use of property that has become essentially unlawful due to a change in the law, but it nevertheless gets to continue in existence because it predated the ordinance. Here, what we're talking about is a cap that applies. It applies to everybody, but it disfavors newer businesses, even though they're in the same category as older businesses. Because of the existence of the cap, they can wind up paying more in occupational taxes, even though, for example, their gross profits, which is what the tax is calculated on, may be less. So they may be making less money, but paying more in taxes simply because they're a newer business than, say, a business that has been existing in a while that's having greater gross profits.
You're saying gross profits, and I've heard gross sales. Which, are we voting on gross profits, or are we voting on gross sales?
No, I'm sorry, did I say gross revenue is actually the term. And so that's used for grouping, the businesses are grouped by gross revenue, and then the tax is applied to the gross revenue. But the tax rate is determined by the grouping that they're in.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of calls from a lot of the car dealers and used car dealer guys in town. I'm just trying to understand. Anybody got any questions? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. Need a motion? Anybody want to make a motion to?
Yeah. Go ahead, Gerald. So moved. Oh, we need to make a vocal motion other than. What number are we on again now?
Number 6.
Oh, number 6. I move we adopt the occupation tax ordinance as proposed before us tonight. That's Resolution 13-2017.
Have a motion and a second. Assume you're ready to vote. All in favor of adopting Resolution 13-217, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 14-217, Recreational Trail Program Grant Application.
Attached in your agenda items is a resolution to approve an application for the Recreational Trails Program from the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. This application process will occur actually in 2018. The deadline for the application is in January of 2018. The city is intending to request grant funding in the amount of $200,000 to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources for funding for a Carrollton Greenbelt spur coming from the south side that would connect Southwire and Tanner into downtown, where it would basically stub out kind of across the street from the depot. I'm available if you have any questions.
So it says here that the grant funds for the Alabama Street Trailhead. That was the one that we voted in 2 months ago for the boat launch-ish area. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Alabama Street Trailhead was the last RTP grant that we have utilized. We also used one for the Lake Carroll Trailhead. That was also RTP funding. They have since increased the amount of funding that they give. They've gone from $100,000 per grant cycle to $200,000 per grant cycle. The city would be required to contribute, if awarded $200,000, $50,000 in funding. Some of that can be done through in-kind.
How was the decision to make that area of town for this grant application? Versus, because I know at our last meeting about infrastructure projects, we hadn't actually kind of chosen what area we wanted to go to next as a spur. What was the decision behind the Tanner area?
Correct. The two spurs that I think we've discussed the most would be the Rome Street spur coming south from where it ends at William Street, and then this particular spur that cuts through Tanner's Park. Georgia Department of Natural Resources, they're very aware and cognizant of the types of trails that are going in. If you recall, the Rome Street path really functions more like a side path. Although we view it as a path, they really view it more as a widened sidewalk. This one would be cutting through some park space, and it would probably score higher because the other they're going to view basically as a widened sidewalk, and they do not fund sidewalks. And I was concerned that we would get basically dinged on that.
This is going through the Tanner-owned property, but
Correct.
up their park.
Mm-hmm.
What is their? Do we know their current plan for connecting their campus into the community?
So not part of this application, but related to this application. Currently, as I understand it, I don't want to speak for them, but as I understand their plan for the Dixie Street construction for the Tanner Health Pavilion, they are actually going to build the portion of the spur in front of Dixie Street, which helps us because back to it looks more like a side path and not a trail. And then we would then use this funding to connect that piece over into downtown. So that particular piece would, and that will actually help us on our application because it shows some private investment beyond, just support.
I'm all for connecting businesses into town, and it looks like impact to the city will be largely minimal with this sort of an application. Is there another section between the Tanner campus and this piece, or between this piece and the downtown area that will be needed to finish that section out?
This section will actually probably, based off of the preliminary cost estimates, cost more than what we're requesting. This is just the maximum amount that we can request. So there will be more city participation than $50,000 as we've reviewed the preliminary cost estimates, just based off of linear square feet and that sort of thing.
When would this expire? Would we have to match that immediately, or once we say we get the grant, what would there be a time frame to use that money?
They would award what they would do is they would award local governments, the ones that make it through. They actually call this a pre-application. It's not even their bona fide application to move forward. They usually do that in the spring. And then from there, we would go forward with the full application. Typically, they're going to give funding as long as we meet the requirements and that sort of thing. But you're looking at probably 12 months at least before you're going to see any dirt moving. The Alabama Street one was a little unique. That was actually funded for a separate location. We wound up having to move it because of some other development efforts on the part of someone outside of the city, and so that money. It took us a little bit longer to spend the Alabama Street money just because it was really on us. We had to relocate the spur that we wanted to build.
How's that one coming along?
They are finally grading for the parking lot. I'm not sure if you noticed it. I was out there last week, and I don't think they haven't started pouring anything, have they? No, it's looking great. I mean, it's what we did was we went in and not cleared, but we thinned some of the invasives that were between the trail and the parking lot. So we cleared it out to provide visibility for the trail, which I think has helped immensely. It's been used as a de facto parking lot for the trail since then. I always see cars parked out there because folks park there. But we're wrapping it up very quickly. So I would think within the end of the month we would have.
I just want to say this. We love these RTP grants. They're real easy to use. The bidding process is real simple. And again, our commitment is 20%. This would not build this full spur from Dixie Street, but what we would do is use what's there. And once it's expanded, then you can decide whether you want to build the rest, whether you want to build the rest 3 years from now, whatever you'd want to do. So this does not obligate you to build that entire spur. It just obligates you to put $50,000 with their $200 and build $250,000 worth of spur.
This may be a stupid question. Is this the farmer's market as well? Could it be used?
We'll be working with Tanner on the exact location. The farmers market ultimately will move over to the health pavilion. I believe that's the plan once they build it. But yeah, it would be adjacent to where they are located currently. So one thing that we're just trying to do is just leverage the money that we're spending local dollars with state and federal money as much as we can. And Tim's right, these are actually not easy grants, but grants that are easier to maneuver than some others.
Can I have a motion we adopt? Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Tony Richardson, vehicle bids, water filter plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 8 on the agenda tonight is for the purchase of a vehicle for the water treatment plant. It is in the current budget for this purchase. It'll be replacing a vehicle that has an excess of 175,000 miles, and it has mechanical issues at this time. We requested pricing from our local bidders, received those, and then we also compared them to the state bid list. State bid list price of $26,836 was the low bid. If you choose to purchase local, the lowest price locally came from Walker GMC at a cost of $781 above state bid list price. Scott Evans is a Dodge place just outside of town, but they also own the Nissan place that is in town. The lowest bid we received locally was Walker. They were lower than the Scott Evans bid.
It's Pugmire. That's here, isn't it? Next to Chick-fil-A, right? I like the idea of staying local, and I like Walker's price. So I move, if I may, that we let me see what this purchase is for again, so I can say it. I move we purchase the water filter plant truck. I guess I'm saying that correctly. It's a half-ton, four-wheel drive pickup truck at the price of $27,617, which is the lowest local bid from Walker GMC.
Have a motion and a second. I'm going to recuse myself on this bid because I have a long-standing friendship with Mr. Walker. Just because. All in favor of adopting the bid from Walker GMC, please raise your hand. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Tony, still up?
Tony, before you go forward, I have a typo on the memo I sent y'all for the next item. I carried that same paragraph over to this memo, and I had to flew that week when I wrote that, so that's my excuse.
This next item is also a vehicle purchase for the Facilities Maintenance Department. This will be a 3/4 ton, 4-wheel drive truck with a service body to be used by our electrician. We also requested bids from local dealers on this truck and compared them to the state bid list. State bid list price was $34,373. And the local bids, the lowest one came from Scott Evans Dodge, and it's $1,381 more than the state bid list price. So if you choose to purchase local, they would be the lowest bidder.
I move that we adopt, I move that we permit the city to purchase the 3/4 ton 4-wheel drive service bed truck from Scott Evans Dodge for the contract price of $35,754.
I have a motion and a second. Any more questions? I have one. Is this gas or diesel?
It'd be gas, and it's replacing a 20-year-old vehicle with excess over 100,000. We don't really know how many.
Good
I
enough.
would think about things like hybrid engines, motors, more aggressive type.
For this vehicle, this is also used in emergency response situations from our maintenance department to respond to our facilities that, all hours of the night. So I think if you're talking electric, I think you run a chance of it not being charged when you need it to go. As far as alternative fuels, we can certainly look into that in the future. We haven't because it's going to increase the price and we go with a lower.
Maybe not alternative fuels, but like how the Prius turns off at the light and, when you stop it, the engine stops running. I think that would be a hybrid vehicle, right?
Yes, and I think they're more common maybe in administrative vehicles and not so much service vehicles. But I can certainly check into that in the future.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Adopt Scott Evans Dodge, is that right? Motion carries 5-0. Tim, 2018 Mayor Council meeting schedule.
It's the time of year again to set your meeting dates. There are five meeting dates that would normally be the first Monday of the month that need to move. January 1st to January 8th, because January 1st is obviously the New Year's holiday. From January 5th to the 12th, there is the father-daughter dance that night, and that I know that Mitt would like to be able to be at this council meeting and also enjoy that with his daughter. April 2nd changed to April 9th because that's the spring break for city schools. July 2nd changed to July 9th because that's 4th of July week. And September 3rd changed to September 10th because that's Labor Day. But we like to set this ahead of time so that you don't have to vote to change that as the year goes by and that the public knows what our meeting schedule will be.
Have a motion we adopt.
So moved.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Have a second. Any more discussion?
Only if Roy will take his daughter to the father's daughter dance will I approve this.
Good enough. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ms. Stutter, board appointment, Planning Commission.
You have 3 planning commissioners whose terms expire at the end of this year. Bo Bass was appointed in April of 2017, so that's this year, to fill an unexpired term. That term that he filled actually expires at the end of this year. Scott Duncan was appointed in April of 2011 to fill an unexpired term and has since completed 2 full terms. Kara Herzog was appointed in April 2012 to fill an unexpired term and has since completed 1 full term. All 3 of these planning commissioners are assets to the Planning Commission, and they have good attendance, and staff recommends reappointing each of them to a new 3-year term unless you would choose otherwise.
There was, I think, a desire on the part of Mayor Pro Tem Byrd to consider Dr. Belega for one of these slots. Obviously, he's a friend of this council, our next council member. All 3 of these commissioners are great commissioners. If you were to decide to place Dr. Belega on in lieu of one of these, we would recommend Scott Duncan only because he lives outside the city, and really it would be a tough call, but Bo Bass was just appointed, so we would hate to bump him back off.
He's also served the longest.
Yep.
Of the-
Yeah,
of
Scott
these
has
three.
served the longest. Again, that's not a negative on Scott. It's just, that's a tough decision to make, but if you're going to make that decision, that would be our recommendation.
All right.
And I actually received 2 phone calls about Dr. Belega's candidacy on the P&Z. But
Well, I'll make a motion that we adopt all 3 except for Scott and plug in Mr. Belega.
and I second that.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? I'm putting Bo Bass, Peter Belega, and Kerry Herzog on the back on the Planning Commission. Please raise your hand. All opposed? 3-2. Board appointment, Main Street Board.
There are 3 directors whose terms expire on December 31st on the Carrollton Main Street Board of Directors. Brett Baxley, Dorothy Pittman, and Pam Allman are all retailers in downtown Carrollton and have been active board members. The Main Street Board met, and they recommend the following individuals to replace these outgoing board members. Adam DeCure is the owner of Adam and Sons, which is a home decor retail store located on Adamson Square next to Corner Cafe. James Schiller is the owner of Schiller Productions. He's a video, media, and marketing firm. And then Lauren Yates is a realtor with Metro West Realty.
Does Miss Yates live in the city limits?
I don't think that's a qualification with the Main Street Board, but I'm not aware. I don't think she does.
Okay, thank you.
And she doesn't own any stores up on.
No, she's not a merchant. She's a realtor is one of the kind of the professionals that are desirable for the Main Street Board, and it's actually in the bylaws, so that's why she was nominated.
So I will make a motion.
I make a motion that we elect the current slate that's set forth on this memorandum dated November 27, 2017 for the Main Street Board of Directors.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Number 13, Board Appointment, Corridor Development and Beautification Committee.
As you recall, when you adopted the resolution establishing the Carrollton Corridor Development Beautification Committee, the committee members' terms were staggered into 1-, 2-, and 3-year terms so as to not have all committee members roll off at the same time. There are 4 committee members whose terms have expired, and they are as follows. David Godwin, City School Board Member and Senior Vice President at Bank South Mortgage. Christina Davis, Senior Project Manager at Columbia Residential, which is a regional mixed-use and multifamily development company. Sandra Houston, who serves as the Planning Commission representative. She's also an associate broker at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia. And then Luke Wojcik is a civil engineer with Georgia and West Inc. All 4 members have agreed to continue to serve, and they have absolutely been assets to this committee. I feel like we're just kind of getting started, but we have made great strides, I think, in the work that we've done on Bankhead, and all 4 have been very participatory in that, and they have good attendance at the meetings.
Any discussion? I'd like to make a motion we adopt the appointments from the board of David Godwin, Christina Davis, Sandra Houston, and Luke Wojcik. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And I do hereby declare this meeting is over.